The Kansas prairie stretches flat and endless, a quiet field of wind and rust. At its center, the old airstrip lies, scarred chunks of asphalt, cracked grass pushing through every seam. The sign at the gate has long faded. Airfield closed, 1971. Beyond the chain-link fence, a single figure walks slowly, boots crunching on gravel. Jack Delaney carries a small canvas bag and the patience of a man used to silence. He kneels, brushing dust from a jagged sheet of metal buried near a crater. The afternoon sun flashes across stamped letters, AAF 71, burned and warped by heat half a century ago. He runs a thumb along the edge, feeling the past bite at his skin. A low hum trembles through the air, some distant welding shop, someone else's repair. Jack lifts his head toward the sound, listening. The wind answers with nothing but the steady hiss of grass. Eli. "Hey, sir. You okay out there?" The voice drifts from behind a tripod. Eli, a young engineering student, squints against the sun camera, blinking red. "Jack." "Yeah, just checking what's left." Eli. "That from the bombing, Jack, from what's left of it." He studies the metal again. "Maybe it can carry weight again." Eli steps closer, careful not to trip over the uneven concrete. His sneakers scrape the marks of what used to be a runway centerline. The air smells of rust and dry weeds. For a moment, neither speaks. Jack folds the fragment into his bag, straightens, and surveys the length of the old strip. Ghost outlines of lights still punctuate the edges, empty sockets where bulbs once guided planes home. His eyes trace the horizon where heat wavers above the prairie like thin smoke. The camera whirs softly as Eli keeps filming. "Eli, you really think it could work again, Jack?" "Runways aren't the problem. People forget why they were built." He gestures toward the field, a slow arc of his hand that covers both ruin and sky. "This place carried more than planes," he says, half to himself. "It carried hope, supplies, maybe even mercy." The boy lowers the camera. The only sound now is the flag above the fence, torn but still catching light, clattering on its pole with each gust. Jack squints into the glare. The reflection off the metal piece paints his face with shifting gold. He looks older in the brightness, but there's a quiet steadiness in the set of his jaw. For a long moment, nothing moves but the grass. Then he tucks the fragment into his pack, slings it over his shoulder, and turns down the cracked runway. His footsteps echo in the open air, fading into the wind. The sun slips lower, casting a long shadow ahead of him, one man walking where engines once roared. He stops, looks back once, and murmurs just loud enough for the camera to catch. "Let's see how engineers reinvent runways." The hum of an aging ceiling fan circles through the small municipal office, chopping the air into tired rhythm. Dust floats in slanted light. On the desk, a folder marked "Application for Site Reconstruction" sits, open pages creased at the corners. Beside it lies the same piece of scrap metal Jack Delaney found in the field tag, AAF 71 edges, cleaned, gleaming faintly under the lamp. He adjusts his cap and waits. Across the desk, Ms. Porter rifles through his forms with the speed of someone who has seen too many requests and too few results. The ticking clock above her head sinks with the tap of her pen. "Ms. Porter, you're an engineer, Mr. Delaney, not on any city list." "Jack, we built this airfield once. We can reinvent it again." "Mrs. Porter, using bomb scrap. That's not procedure." Her tone is polite, but each word lands with weight. She slides the folder back toward him, stamped "Denied" in deep red ink. The fan above them groans once, then keeps spinning. Jack's hands rest flat on the folder. His wedding ring leaves a faint circle on the paper. "Jack, procedure didn't build it the first time either." "Miss Porter, sir, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but we can't approve volunteer reconstruction. Liability, budget, history, take your pick." "Jack, history's exactly why it matters." She softens a little but says nothing. The air between them tightens, filled with the faint rustle of another file being closed. Jack gathers his papers, folds the folder under his arm, and lifts the metal piece. For a second he holds it up to the window, where sunlight catches the scorch marks. "Jack, this isn't wreckage. It's proof the ground still holds." No answer, just the buzz of the fluorescent light overhead. He turns and walks toward the exit. Outside, the afternoon heat swallows him whole. The world brightens too sharp after the dim office. Eli waits across the steps, camera ready. Eli. How'd it go, Jack? They said reinventing's not in the manual. Eli. So what now? Jack. We'll write a new one. He keeps walking past the city's maintenance trucks lined like sentinels, engines silent in the sun. Each reflection in their windshields bends the red stamp on his folder into streaks of light. At the edge of the parking lot, he stops beside his pickup. The metal scrap rests on the seat next to a stack of blueprints, corners curling with age. He stares at the denial letter a moment longer, the ink already smudging under his thumb. Then he opens the glove box, pulls out his lighter. The flame catches slow and blue. He holds the paper above it, watching it blacken along the edges before letting it drop into a metal pan near his welding torch. The ember flares, dies, and leaves only ash curling like smoke through the workshop air. Through the open door, the sky glows the same color as the steel he plans to weld tomorrow. The door to Jack's old workshop opens with a drawn-out sigh, metal hinges complaining from years of disuse. The smell of oil dust and burnt resin greets him like an old comrade. Sunlight cuts through the high windows in golden columns, landing on a cluttered drafting table at the center of the room. On it lies a rolled sheet of paper, its edges singed the ghost of a plan left unfinished. The blueprint still bears the faint mark of the Air Force stamp, Runway Lighting Grid, 1969. The corners are brittle, dotted with ash flakes that crumble when touched. Jack brushes them away gently, unrolling the page with care. The grid lines stretch like veins across the page, once precise, now broken. He sits, straightens his back, and places a clean sheet over the ruins. The faint hum of the shop fan begins its lazy rhythm. A sharp pencil traces the first line. The door creaks again. Hank. Didn't we draw this grid back in '69? Jack looks up and smiles. Standing in the doorway is Hank Morales, his old crew chief, hair thinner, belly thicker, same dry grin. Jack. Yeah, before it got bombed. Hank. You kept the plans. Jack. What's left of them? Hank. You really think the city'll let you rebuild it? Jack. Don't need permission to start measuring. Hank chuckles, stepping closer. His boots leave small clouds of dust as he walks. He peers over Jack's shoulder, watching the pencil glide over the page, the sound soft but certain. Hank. Still the same hand, steady as a surveyor's rod. Jack, steadier now. Fewer distractions. He switches to a compass drawing concentric circles that mark the perimeter lights. The shop fan hums louder. Its wind ripples the corner of the burned blueprint beneath. Jack pauses, picks up a ruler marked in faint military ink. He aligns it against a margin and begins to sketch out a new wiring path, the graphite whispering across the paper. Each motion feels like reclaiming something the war tried to erase. Hank. You're really going to use that old scrap, Jack? It's not scrap, it's memory, stronger than what they sell new. Hank. You test it. Jack. I will, when it matters. They work side by side for a while, no words needed. The faint buzz of electricity from a small lamp fills the silence. Dust swirls through the sunlight, turning the air silver. The old radio crackles in the corner, but never catches a signal. Jack slides a worn notebook across the table. Inside are notes, voltages, distances, weather resistances, written in cramped, patient handwriting. Hank flips through, shaking his head slowly. Hank. You've been keeping these since we closed the base. Jack. Some things aren't meant to stay closed. He reaches for a mechanical pencil, darkens a line that links the main circuit to a relay node. The graphite smudges under his palm, leaving a faint stain on his hand. The afternoon light shifts, sliding down the table to touch the burned edges of the old plan. Jack tilts the new blueprint, just enough for the light to wash across both old grid and new one, scarred one reborn. Hank. You know, Jack, we could have used you in the rebuild team. Jack. We're still rebuilding, just later than planned. The fan hum deepens. A page flutters. The smell of pencil shavings mixes with metal dust, filling the air with the scent of labor. Jack sets his pencil down, wipes his hand on his shirt, and stares at the page. Two sets of lines now overlap perfectly, 1969 and 2025, past and present, joined in graphite. He takes a red circle pen, marks 2 words in the corner, letters bold and deliberate. Runway, Reinvented. The sunlight catches the fresh ink, and for a brief second it glows like a filament, ready to spark. The hangar smells of ozone and oil. Night presses against the windows, turning their reflection into a mirror of sparks. The old runway's heartbeat waits in silence, cables coiled like veins across the floor, solder smoke rising in thin glowing threads. Jack Delaney crouches under the single work lamp, goggles fogged, hands steady. The scrap metal panels, once fragments of Airfield 1971, are now welded into light housings along the test strip. Each one carries the faint ghost of serial numbers half buried beneath fresh polish. Eli adjusts his camera on a tripod near the open door. The lens catches the soft stutter of the welding arc. Eli, you sure this will hold, Mr. Delaney? Jack. It held 50 years ago under worse conditions. A rivet gun pops. The sound echoes sharp, then fades into the hum of the generator outside. Jack straightens, flexing his shoulder, and wipes sweat from his brow. Eli, this is how engineers reinvent runways. Jack, exactly. He nods toward the wires, using scrap metal from bombed airfields and patience. He lowers the welding mask and makes one final joint, the light flashing blue-white across his face. The circuit completes with a quiet click, then silence. Jack stands in the half-dark, one hand resting on the breaker switch. His breath sounds loud in the stillness. Eli ready. Jack always. He flips the switch. The generator hums deeper, like a held note building toward song. Then one by one the runway lights flicker to life, dim at first, then brighter. A pale green line stretches out through the hangar door across the cracked concrete, tracing the ghost of the old airfield. Eli exhales a laugh. It's alive. Jack doesn't answer. He just watches. The bulbs throb in rhythm, their reflections dancing in his welding visor. For the first time, the burned fragments of metal from 1971 shine again, not as wreckage, but as guidance. Eli, how'd you even figure the wiring ratios? Jack, old Air Force specs. Some instinct. And a little luck. Eli, you think anyone'll notice out here? Jack, they'll notice when planes see this light from the highway. The camera light blinks red as Eli captures every frame, the trembling glow, the man beside it, the sound of a system returning to life. Jack moves down the strip, checking each connection. The light fades and steadies with each touch of his hand as though responding to him alone. Jack, funny thing about reinvention, it's just repair with purpose. Eli, you make it sound simple. Jack, it never is, but it's worth doing right. He kneels near the last housing, adjusting a terminal screw. The electricity hums through the metal, making it vibrate faintly beneath his glove. Outside, the wind picks up, whistling through the open door. For a moment, the whole place seems to breathe. He steps back, eyes scanning the line. Every bulb burns steady except one, the farthest at the edge of the old tarmac. It flickers, struggles, then steadies with a quiet snap. The pulse of the current smooths, the glow deepens. Jack smiles, just a small, satisfied curve. Eli, guess she passed. Jack, no. She remembered. The camera pans out, framing the narrow line of light cutting through darkness. The hum of the current softens into quiet. A deep breath fills the silence. Wind sweeps the hangar floor, scattering dust like silver mist. Jack stands alone in the glow, the green reflection washing over his gloves. One flickering bulb steadies the runway, breathes again. Morning broke quiet, but the world had already seen the light. Overnight, Eli's video titled "How Engineers Reinvented Runways" had spread through every town feed and veterans group in the region. The thumbnail showed a glowing green strip cutting through darkness, captioned simply, "Built from bomb scrap. Reborn by hand." By noon, cars lined the dirt road leading to the old airfield. Farmers, teachers, veterans, and students gathered at the fence, their breath visible in the crisp air. Children pressed against the wire, peering through at the shimmer of the reconstructed lights. Camera shutters clicked in quick rhythm, and the murmur of a growing crowd rolled like soft thunder. Jack stood near the hangar door, hands in the pockets of his oil-stained jacket. He hadn't planned for any of this. He thought the runway's glow would be something only the prairie and the wind would witness. Eli moved between tripods, checking microphones and cables. Eli, the mayor called 3 times. Says the whole county's talking. Jack, guess news travels faster than light, huh? Eli and Ms. Porter's on her way, with something official. Jack raised an eyebrow but didn't ask. The wind shifted, carrying a faint chime from the town church bell 2 miles away. Noon, exactly. The sound floated across the field like a signal. Moments later, a city truck pulled up, kicking dust into the sunlight. Ms. Porter stepped out holding a metal plaque wrapped in brown paper. She looked different now, less distant, her office precision softened by the hum of expectation around her. Ms. Porter. Mr. Delaney. Jack. Ms. Porter. Ms. Porter. They want to see it tested again. Jack. Then they'll see what bomb metal can still do. The crowd quieted as Jack walked toward the breaker box at the edge of the hangar. The hum of generators filled the air low and steady. Eli positioned the camera toward the runway's length, its green bulbs faint in the afternoon haze. Jack rested his hand on the switch. He took a breath, steady, calm, the kind that carries memory. Jack. This isn't about metal. It's about believing we can build again. He flipped the switch. A spark snapped. The lights surged one by one, then all at once the entire runway ignited in a line of vivid green. The crowd gasped. The sound of cameras firing overlapped with laughter, with awe, with something like pride. The bulbs burned brighter this time, each reflection catching the faces pressed against the fence. Wind stirred across the field, bending the tall grass in synchronized waves. The steel housings born from wreckage gleamed as though they had waited 50 years for this moment. Ms. Porter stepped closer, her gaze locked on the lights stretching into the horizon. She unwrapped the plaque, polished aluminum engraved with simple words, Airfield 71 rebuilt by hands that once served. She handed it to Jack. Ms. Porter. The City Council approved it this morning. It's yours and the community's. Jack, quietly. Didn't need to be mine, just needed to work. Eli caught the exchange on camera, the plaque's surface reflecting the live glow of the runway. The hum of electricity rose, blending with the rustle of clothes, the clicking of phones, the small cheers. Jack turned to the crowd, nodding once, a craftsman's acknowledgement, not a speech. For him, justice wasn't applause. It was the light staying on. A soft breeze moved through, brushing against the metal edges. The glow shimmered against every pair of watching eyes, reflected like tiny emerald stars. The sound of the lights deepened into harmony with the evening air. And somewhere between the hush and the distant applause, the town exhaled as one quiet, grateful, renewed. The hum of light blended with the quiet applause. A year later, the airfield breathes with quiet purpose. The prairie grass has grown soft around the edges of the concrete, framing the reborn strip like a monument carved by time itself. A wooden sign at the entrance reads simply, Memorial Week Guided Tours Daily. The morning sky glows faintly, gold clouds moving slow and dignified. A radio hums from a parked van near the gate. Glenn Campbell's Wichita lineman filters through static, the melody drifting across the wind like a half-remembered conversation. Eli, now wearing a visitor's badge and a slightly faded jacket with Film Crew 2025 stitched on the sleeve, stands before a group of students. Some hold cameras, others carry notebooks, all squinting toward the long line of lights stretching into the distance. Eli. This was a military airfield once. Bombed, abandoned, forgotten. Then an engineer named Jack Delaney decided that scrap could still serve. He gestures down the runway. Every bulb you see, every bracket, every circuit came from what most people called wreckage. The students murmur, moving closer to the fence. The air hums faintly, the electricity still sleeping beneath the switch. One of the younger students points toward a metal plaque mounted on a low stone pedestal at the center of the field. Its brushed surface catches the sun, polished bright by months of visitors' hands. They gather around it, reading the inscription aloud, How Engineers Reinvented Runways Using Scrap Metal from Bombed Airfields. Built by engineer Jack Delaney, 2025. The words gleam with clarity, the title standing literal and whole, unchanged, unembellished, proud. Student. Did he really do it alone? Eli, no one builds alone. but he started it when no one else would. Student. What happened to him? Eli glances toward the far end of the runway. The wind moves through the grass, lifting small swirls of dust. Eli. He passed last winter, but he left this light on for everyone else. He presses a button on a nearby control panel. The generator hums to life low and familiar. One by one, the bulbs begin to glow green, steady, confident. The students fall silent as the light stretches toward the horizon as if the field itself were exhaling. At the edge of the tarmac stands a small wooden bench. Resting on it are a pair of worn leather gloves, jacks creased at the knuckles, palms still smudged with graphite and soot. The gloves are placed neatly side by side beneath a folded blueprint sealed under glass. The camera Eli holds trembles slightly as he films the reflection of the light running across the lens like tears. He steps back, allowing the students to walk the length of the strip. Their shadows drift along the concrete, merging with the green glow beneath their feet. The music from the van continues, soft, nostalgic, echoing faintly across the open field. No one speaks. The only voices are wind and current carrying the memory of hands that welded hope from ruin. Eli lowers the camera and looks out across the runway, his breath fogging lightly in the cool air. The hum steadies, constant, alive. Eli softly. He said once that reinvention isn't about starting over, it's about continuing what deserved better. The students pause near the last bulb where the light line meets the horizon. The air is utterly still, the sky vast and waiting. As the final note of Wichita lineman fades, the breeze returns, brushing across the metal plaques and the gloves. The runway lights shimmer like fireflies waking in sequence, each one a small act of memory. Then a single line of light remains beneath the engraved title, burning brighter than the rest. Reinvented. It stays lit against the dusk, steady and eternal.